This webinar is about the principles of leadership. The aims of the webinar are to support you to consolidate your knowledge and understanding of leadership theories, to appraise the interconnection between leadership and management and leadership styles, and to compare and contrast leadership styles. We previously considered a range of leadership theories in the first webinar in this series, Leading and Managing a Team. A reminder of some of those theories will feature in this webinar as we consider the principles of leadership and leadership styles, since they fit well with the unit, Leading People. Leadership and management are closely associated and are often part of the same role. In general terms, managers plan, organise, coordinate and facilitate in order to pursue objectives. Leaders inspire and motivate people and set new directions for their team to follow. You may remember from previous reading that Gabrielle, 2008, presented leadership and management as such. Management is about efficiency, planning, procedures, regulation and control, whereas leadership is about direction, guidance and vision. To perform the functions of the role, managers need a wide range of skills and knowledge. They need technical skills, human skills and conceptual skills. The technical skills include the in-depth knowledge about processes, techniques, equipment and procedures. The human skills are about personal and interpersonal skills. And the conceptual skills are understanding, creativity, analysis and problem solving. Closely allied to these are the leadership skills. These focus on people and setting new directions for the organisation. For example, analysing markets and trends, forecasting, innovating, and giving direction for change, communicating vision and plans, and encouraging, praising, developing, and inspiring team members. Good managers need leadership skills to be able to perform all of the functions of management. Leadership is an important component of the commanding or direction function, but it's not always required, for example, in a self-motivated group. A manager cannot just be a leader because they have to consider all of the other functions too. Good leaders may not have any organisational skills, but their vision and ability to influence can unite people behind them, which makes them valuable to an organisation. A leader can be radical and inspire change and development, but they will need others around them who will manage the different systems and operations to make their visions a reality. Warren Bennis, widely known as the leadership guru, identified 6 personal qualities exhibited by successful leaders. These are integrity, which Bennis described as the alignment of words and actions with inner values. He stated that sticking to these values was important, even when an alternative path might be easier or more advantageous. Bennis expounded that a leader with integrity can be trusted and would be admired for sticking to strong values. He also acts as a powerful model for people to copy, thus building an entire organisation with powerful and effective cultural values. Dedication, which Bennis suggested made spending whatever time and energy on a task is required to get a job done, rather than giving it whatever time is available. He purported that the work of most leadership positions is not something to do if there is time, but it means giving your whole self to the task, dedicating yourself to success and to leading others with you. Magnanimity. Bennis believed that a magnanimous person gives credit where it's due, being gracious in defeat and in allowing others who are defeated to retain their dignity. He maintained that magnanimity in leadership includes crediting the people with success and accepting personal responsibility for failures. Humility, the opposite of arrogance and narcissism. For Bennis, it meant recognizing that you are not inherently superior to others and consequently that they are not inferior to you. It does not mean diminishing yourself, nor does it mean exalting yourself. Humble leaders do not debase themselves, neither falsely nor due to low self-esteem. They simply recognize all people as equal in value and know that their position does not make them a god. Openness. Being able to listen to ideas that are outside one's current mental models. Being able to suspend judgment until after one has heard someone else's ideas. An open leader listens to their people without trying to shut them down early, which at least demonstrates care and builds trust. Openness also treats other ideas as potentially better than one's own. In the uncertain world of new territory, being able to openly consider alternatives is an important skill. Creativity means thinking differently, being able to get outside the box and take a new and different viewpoint on things. For a leader to be able to see a new future towards which they will lead their team. Creativity provides the ability to think differently and see things that others have not seen, and thus giving reason for the team to follow. The personal qualities of a leader are undoubtedly important, but are unlikely to be sufficient in themselves for the emergence and exercise of leadership. Furthermore, the manner in which these qualities translate into behaviour and group interaction is dependent on a whole host of factors, such as the nature of the leader, the team members, the task, and the organisational structure. The leader is seen to act as an energizer, a catalyst, a visionary, equipped with a set of tools such as communication, problem solving, people management, decision making, that can be applied across a diverse range of situations and contexts. Leadership, therefore, is conceived as a set of values, qualities and behaviours exhibited by the leader that encourage the participation, development and commitment of their team. Nevertheless, leadership is a complex process, and research has thrown up serious reservations over the extent to which a set of standards, qualities or competencies can ever fully capture the nature of what makes some leaders and organisations successful and others unsuccessful. Let's have a look at what the ILM think.
Just by looking around my organisation, I can see many different styles of leadership. How do I know which is best?
Effective team leaders inspire their team members whatever the situation. They ensure that each member is engaged with the work of the team. An engaged team member can be completely absorbed in their work and is very enthusiastic about what they do, so they gain satisfaction from their work and add to the organisation's reputation and interests. So what engages team members? It has been suggested that people have 4 natural drives. They are the drive to acquire, the drive to bond, the drive to learn, and the drive to defend. These interact with each other to create the complex behaviour typical of everyday life. Recognizing your own drives and helping your team to fulfill these 4 drives at work becomes your goal as a leader. There is no single best style of leadership to suit every situation. An effective leader adapts to each situation. Let your team know that this is what you intend to do, so that they don't see any inconsistencies in how you lead them. One way of understanding leadership is to consider it as mainly transactional or mainly transformational. Transactional leadership happens when the leader gets the follower to act in a certain way in return for something the follower wants, such as offering a bonus in return for increased sales. Transactional leaders are problem solvers and implementers who plan, organise, and make decisions. They are good at getting things done through people, and they operate through social and emotional behaviours to energise people and influence them to do what is required to achieve the organisation's goals. Depending on the situation and their ability to access resources, they sometimes give commands and instructions, sometimes they coach team members or give support, or sometimes they delegate responsibility and authority and trust team members to do the tasks by themselves. They appreciate the need for reason and logic to make order out of chaos, and they promote stability. Transformational leadership is visionary and concerned about mission and direction. Transformational leaders are charismatic, and they energize others with their vision of the future by making them feel inspired by the new possibilities and empowered to make them happen. They gain everyone's commitment to a common purpose and make change attractive to all team members. They enable others to act on their vision, and they get both organizations and followers to embrace change. They act as positive role models for new ways of working. Effective leaders use all strategies available to them. They are aware that their team members have different drives. They know that there is a transactional element to the relationship they have with their team members. And they also know that sometimes energy and enthusiasm is what is needed to get the best out of them.
This short video talks about the many different styles of leadership to be found in an organisation and how difficult it can be to decide which is the best one. It echoes the supposition that effective leaders inspire their team members and ensure that each member is engaged with the work of the team. The video talks about the need to know what motivates each team member and suggests that there are 4 interconnected drives. That is, the drive to acquire, the drive to bond, the drive to learn, or the drive to defend, which are part and parcel of the complex behaviour of everyday life. There's a suggestion that, if leaders recognise their own drives, then it should be easier to help the people they lead to fulfil their drives whilst at work, and this then becomes the goal of the leader. The video goes on to state that there is no single best style of leadership to suit every situation, and an effective leader adapts to each circumstance. As you will hear, this statement will be a recurring feature throughout this webinar. In this video, you are asked to consider leadership as mainly transactional or mainly transformational. Let's remind ourselves of these 2 types of leadership. The transactional approach emphasises the importance of the relationship between a leader and his or her team, focusing on the mutual benefits derived from a form of contract through which the leader delivers such things as rewards or recognition in return for the commitment or loyalty of the team. This theory starts with the premise that team members agree to obey their leader when they accept a job. The transaction usually involves the organisation paying members in return for their effort and compliance on a short-term task. The example given in the video suggests that a transactional leader would offer to give a team member a bonus for increased sales. Transactional leaders are problem solvers and implementers. They plan, organise and make decisions and are good at getting things done through other people. They operate through social and emotional behaviours to energise people and influence them to do what is required to achieve the organisation's goals. Again, depending on the situation and their ability to access resources, they sometimes give commands and instructions. At other times they coach or they give support, and sometimes they delegate responsibility and authority and trust the team members to complete the task by themselves. Transactional leadership is present in many business leadership situations, and although it might sound controlling and paternalistic, it does offer some benefits. For example, it clarifies everyone's roles and responsibilities, and because transactional leadership judges team members on performance, people who are ambitious or who are motivated by external rewards, including compensation, often thrive. This style of leadership promotes stability by using reason and logic. The downside of this style is that on its own, it can be chilling and amoral. For example, a leader has the right to punish if a team member does not meet expectations. This style also has serious limitations for knowledge-based or creative work. As a result, team members can often do little to improve their job satisfaction. In both of these instances, the style can feel stifling and it can lead to high staff turnover. Transactional leadership is really a type of management, not a true leadership style, because the focus is on short-term tasks. Transformational leadership in business, it is often the most effective style to use. Transformational leadership is visionary and is concerned about mission and direction. It is in itself a process in which the leaders take actions to try to increase their team's awareness of what is right and important, to raise their team's motivational maturity, and to move them to go beyond their own self-interests for the good of the group or the organisation. Transformational leaders are charismatic. They have integrity, a quality espoused by Bennis, and they have high emotional intelligence. They communicate well. They are typically self-aware, authentic, empathetic, and humble. The latter is another leadership quality highlighted by Bennis. Transformational leaders motivate and energize others with their vision of the future by making them feel inspired by the new possibilities and empowered to make them happen. Transformational leaders gain everyone's commitment to a common purpose, and they make change attractive to all team members because they expect the best from everyone and they hold themselves accountable for their actions. They enable others to act on their vision, and they get both the organisation and the team to embrace change. They act as positive role models for new ways of working. Effective transformational leaders use a range of strategies available to them, and they are acutely aware of their team members because they know they have different drives. They know that there is a transactional element to the relationship they have with their team members, and they also know that, at other times, energy and enthusiasm is what is needed to get the best out of them. They set clear goals, and they have good conflict resolution skills. All of this leads to high productivity and engagement. The downside of transformational leadership is that while the leader's enthusiasm is passed on to the team, she or he can need to have the support of detailed people. This is precisely why in many organisations, both transactional and transformational leadership styles are useful. Transactional leaders ensure that routine work is done reliably, while transformational leaders look after initiatives that add new value. It's also important to use other leadership styles when necessary. This will depend on the people being led and the situation that they are in. There are as many approaches to leadership as there are leaders, from Lewin's leadership styles framework of the 1930s to the more recent ideas about transformational leadership. There are also many general styles, including servant and transactional leadership. Fortunately, business people and psychologists have developed useful frameworks that describe the way that many people lead. When you become more aware and understand these frameworks and styles, you can develop your own approach to leadership and become a more effective leader as a result. Your own personal approach is likely to be a blend of these, depending on your own preferences, the needs of your team, and the situation you're in. It behoves us now to revisit some of the other leadership theories and consider the interconnection between leadership and management and leadership styles. Psychologist Kurt Lewin developed his framework in the 1930s, and it provided the foundation of many of the approaches that followed afterwards. Loon is particularly well known for his work on the management of change, which is a topic that will be explored next in the series of webinars. But in the early years, he argued that there are three major styles of leadership: autocratic, democratic, and laissez-faire. More about these shortly. Tannenbaum and Schmidt appear to build on Lewin's framework with their continuum of leadership behaviour. Their work was the result of their criticism of early work on leadership styles, which they felt were described too much in black and white terms. They propose that leadership behaviour varies along a continuum, and that, as one moves away from the autocratic extreme, shown here on the left of the diagram, the amount of team participation and involvement in the decision-making process increases, thus moving towards a more democratic style of leadership, that is, towards the right of this diagram. Their theory focuses on identifying situational variables to predict the most appropriate and effective leadership style to fit particular circumstances. Tannenbaum and Schmidt's model shows the relationship between how much freedom a leader has, or how the managers chooses to give freedom to their team. Their model has been adapted by many people in order to describe a range of leadership behaviour. Let us look now a little closer at the autocratic, democratic, and laissez-faire styles of leadership. A leader who gives a team very little freedom over what and how they work is described as autocratic. This is an extreme form of transactional leadership, where leaders have a lot of power over their employees. Staff and team members have little opportunity to make suggestions, even if these would be in the interest of the team or organisation as a whole. The benefit of autocratic leadership is that it is incredibly efficient. It can be most appropriate when decisions need to be made quickly, when there's no need for team input, and when team agreement is not necessary for a successful outcome. This leadership style can also benefit employees who require close supervision or are new to their job, or if they find having choices on how to do things much more challenging. This style can be helpful when full and detailed instructions are needed and for some routine and unskilled jobs. In these situations, the advantages of control may outweigh the disadvantages. Autocratic leadership is often best used in crises when decisions must be made quickly and without dissent. For instance, the military often uses an autocratic leadership style. Top commanders are responsible for quickly making complex decisions, which allows troops to focus their attention and energy on performing their allotted tasks and missions. However, the downside is that most people resent being treated this way, and autocratic leadership can often lead to high levels of absenteeism and high staff turnover. Highly skilled, experienced and creative employees who thrive on variety and taking responsibility find this style particularly difficult to work with. Democratic leaders make the final decisions, but they include team members in the decision-making process. They encourage creativity, and team members are often highly engaged in projects and decisions. There are many benefits of democratic leadership. For example, team members tend to have high job satisfaction and are productive because they're more involved in decisions. This style also helps to develop people's skills. Team members feel in control of their destiny, so they're more motivated to work hard and for more than just financial reward. This approach can slow decision making because participation by everyone involved takes time, but the result is often good. This approach is generally most suitable when the need to work as a team is essential and when quality is more important than efficiency or productivity. The downside of democratic leadership is that it can often hinder situations where speed or efficiency is essential. For instance, During a crisis, a team can waste valuable time gathering everyone's input and ideas. Another downside is that some team members might have the knowledge or expertise to provide high-quality input into the decision-making process. Laissez-faire leadership. This French phrase means leave it be, and it describes leaders who allow their people to work on their own. Laissez-faire leaders may give their teams complete freedom to do their work and set their own deadlines. They provide team support with resources and advice if needed, but otherwise they do not get involved. This leadership style can be effective if the leader monitors performance and gives feedback to team members regularly. And it's most likely to be effective when individual team members are experienced, skilled self-starters. The main benefit of laissez-faire leadership is that giving team members so much autonomy can lead to high job satisfaction and increased productivity. The downside is that it can be damaging if team members do not manage their time well, or if they do not have the knowledge, skills, and/or motivation to do their work effectively. It's worth noting that laissez-faire leadership can also occur when managers do not have control over their work and the people who report to them. Eric Flamholtz and Yvonne Randall developed the Leader Style Matrix and published it in their book, Growing Pains. The Leadership Style Matrix is divided into 4 quadrants. Each quadrant lists 2 leadership styles that are best suited for a specific situation and a person or a group. The y-axis defines the programmability of the task. A programmable task has specific steps or instructions to complete. A non-programmable task is much more creative, and it's up to the individual to decide how best to accomplish it. The x-axis describes the individual's capability and preference for autonomy. Several factors influence this, including education, skill, motivation, and their desire for feedback, interaction, or independence. For instance, a person with a high level of education, skill, motivation, and independence is likely to want autonomy. Someone with low motivation and skill will need and may want more feedback and interaction so that he or she can complete the task successfully. To use the model, first look at the y-axis. If the task must be done in a specific way, or if it has specific steps, then move lower down the axis. If the task is more creative, or if the procedure will change depending on individual input, move higher up the axis. Next, look at the x-axis. If the people you're leading prefer to work alone, move to the right on the axis. If they need more instruction and interaction from you as the leader, move to the left. The quadrant that a leader falls into lists the 2 leadership styles that are most likely to be appropriate for that particular situation. Let's look at each quadrant and the corresponding leadership styles in a little more detail. Sometimes a leader will be in charge of a task that must be done in a specific way, or that needs to be completed by a team that needs a great deal of motivation, guidance, feedback, or interaction. In these cases, a directive leadership approach is most effective. There are 2 styles which can be used here. Autocratic. As we've heard, this leadership style is authoritative. Instructions are issued without any explanation, and team members are expected to follow them without question. This style of leadership is often criticised because it seems outdated in a democratic society. Although it might seem repressive, this style can be effective in some situations, especially when a team depends on decisive leadership and feedback, and when the work must be done in a particular way. We have already heard that this style is most effective in a crisis or emergency situation, or when dealing with work which carries very significant risks. It's important to strike a healthy balance when using this leadership style. A team needs to be led with strength and assertiveness, but it's also important to lead with kindness. Do not forget that team members depend on the feedback given to them, so leaders should praise their good work regularly and give them constructive criticism on how they can improve. The second style that might be used in this quadrant is a benevolent autocratic. This style is similar to the autocratic style. However, this approach is much more participative. For example, instead of just issuing instructions, team members are given the reasons behind the instructions. To use this style successfully, a leader should communicate the reasons why the team must follow instructions. When they understand why certain rules or procedures are in place, they are more likely to follow them. As the team is working, leaders should make sure that they are around and available to answer questions and provide feedback. This visibility and support will help keep the task or project on track and show team members that the leader is there when needed. When the task that's been delegated must be completed in a specific way, and the person that is being chosen for that task wants to have an autonomy in his or her work, the leader can either use a consultative or a participative style of leadership. The consultative style is used when team members are asked for their input and opinion, but the leader still has the final say. The group is consulted, yet the leader is still responsible for choosing the best course of action. To use the consultative leadership style successfully, leaders must build trust in their team. When trust is present, team members will feel comfortable offering their opinion and reacting honestly to issues. Leaders using this approach need to be open to the ideas and suggestions that team members provide. If their ideas are met with criticism or outright rejection, team members will quickly stop speaking up, especially if they feel that a decision has already been made. Leaders should keep an open mind and be willing to change their opinion if someone presents a better idea. The participative leadership style is similar to the consultative style, where a leader still has the final say in the decision. However, this particular style goes a step further. Here, the leader depends on the group to develop ideas, not just offer opinions on an idea. The participative style is more about group problem solving and brainstorming. To use the style successfully, leaders should employ group decision-making and group problem-solving tools to ensure that each person's voice is heard equally. They should keep in mind that, while depending on team members for their input, they still need to guide the discussion. They need to communicate goals and make the final decision. Everyone on the team must understand the leader's role in this process. In this situation, the leader is heading up a highly creative project with a person or with team members who do not want autonomy. Instead, they need direction, input, and interaction. The two leadership styles that fit best in this situation are consultative and participative. These are the same leadership styles that fit best in quadrant 2. That is, high programmability and high job autonomy. Quadrant 4, low programmability, high job autonomy. A leader falls into this quadrant when assigning a creative project to a person who wants the freedom and independence to work. This means a non-directive leadership approach needs to be taken. There are two styles that can be used here. One is consensus. Essentially, this means that the team member is going to be given a great deal of authority in the decision-making process. Instead of being the boss, it's almost as if the leader becomes part of the team. Leaders must therefore ensure that the team member understands his or her responsibilities when using this style. And laissez-faire, which we've advised already, should be used carefully, as it's a hands-off leadership style. Team members are given freedom over how and when they're going to do their work, but the leader is there if they need resources or help. This leadership style can be very effective when working with someone who's highly skilled, motivated and intelligent. To use this style successfully, leaders need to make sure that the right tasks are delegated to the right people. A mismatch between the task and the individual will likely mean that the team member needs additional help and they may not thrive. This matrix is a useful framework for deciding which leadership style to use for different situations, but there are several other tools that can also give useful perspectives. For example, Fiedler's contingency theory and the Hershey-Bland leadership model. These are both good examples of situational leadership, and delving further into their research is advisable since it has a great deal of bearing on the thinking about leadership in the current climate. Situational leadership theory argues that while some situations may require an autocratic style, others may need a more participative approach. And it also proposes that there may be differences in required leadership styles at different levels in the same organisation, and different leadership styles for individuals who have different levels of maturity. Path goal theory is based on Room's expectancy theory, in which an individual will act in a certain way based on the expectation that the act will be followed by a given outcome, and on the attractiveness of that outcome to the individual. Path goal theory also looks at leadership styles that are appropriate for different individuals and different situations. This approach sees leadership as specific to the situation where it's being exercised. Leaders have to consider what their team members want and need, and this closely resembles the drives which we heard about earlier in this webinar, and this is where path goal theory is useful. For example, highly capable people who are assigned to a complex task will need a different leadership approach from people with low ability who are assigned to an ambiguous task. The former will want a participative approach, while the latter will need to be told what to do. The goal, then, is to increase your employees' motivation, empowerment and satisfaction so they become productive members of the organisation. The path goal theory can best be thought of as a process in which leaders select specific behaviours that are best suited to the employees' needs and the working environment, so that they may best guide the employees through their path in the obtainment of their daily work activities. While path goal theory is not a detailed process, it generally follows these basic steps. You have to determine the employee and environmental characteristics. You then need to select a leadership style to suit those, and then focus on the motivational factors that will help the employees succeed. Employees interpret their leaders' behaviour based on their needs, such as the degree of structure they need, affiliation, perceived level of ability, and desire for control. For example, if a leader provides more structure than they need, they become less motivated. Thus, a leader needs to understand their employees so they know how to best to motivate them. Overcoming obstacles is a special focus of path goal theory. If an obstacle becomes too strong, then the leader needs to step in and manage the employees and select a path to work around it. Some of the more difficult task characteristics that often arise are the design of the task. The design of the task might call for the leader's support. For example, if the task is ambiguous, then the leader might have to give it more structure, or an extremely difficult task might actually call for their support. A formal authority system. Depending upon the task authority, the leader can provide clear goals or give the employees some or all of the control. And the work group. If the team is non-supportive, then the leader needs to be cohesive and espouse team spirit that provides comradeship, enthusiasm, and devotion for all team members. The independent variables of path goal theory are, first and foremost, the leader's behaviour. The leader adjusts his or her style of behaviour according to the employee and the task characteristics, so that the employee's motivation is to excel at their goal. The 4 path goal types of leader behaviour are: directive. The leader informs his or her team what is expected of them, such as telling them what to do, how to perform a task, and scheduling and coordinating work. It's most effective when people are unsure about the task or where there is a lot of uncertainty within the environment. Supportive. The leader makes work pleasant for the team by showing concern for them and by being friendly and approachable. It's most effective in situations in which tasks and relationships are physically or psychologically challenging. Participative. The leader consults with his or her team before making a decision about how to proceed. It's most effective when team members are highly trained and involved in their work. And achievement. The leader sets challenging goals for his or her team, expects them to perform at their highest level, and shows confidence in their ability to meet this expectation. It's most effective in professional work environments, such as technical, scientific, or achievement environments, such as sales. As stated earlier, the independent variables of path goal theory are the leader's behaviour. Thus, the path goal theory assumes that leaders are flexible in that they can change their behaviour or style depending upon the situation. This resonates with Fiedler's contingency model, which states that there is no one best style of leadership, and a leader's effectiveness is based on the situation and the style adopted, which is favourable to that situation. Nevertheless, there are other types of leadership which we must also consider in order to gain a comprehensive understanding of the range of ideas presented. Bureaucratic leadership. Bureaucratic leaders work by the book. They follow rules rigorously and ensure that their people follow procedures precisely. This is an appropriate style for work involving serious safety risks, such as working with machinery, with toxic substances, or at dangerous heights, or where large sums of money are involved. Bureaucratic leadership is also useful in organisations where employees do routine tasks, such as in manufacturing. The downside of this leadership style is that all too often it's ineffective in teams and organisations that rely on flexibility, creativity, or innovation. Much of the time, bureaucratic leaders achieve their position because of their ability to conform to and uphold rules, not because of their qualifications or expertise. This can cause resentment when team members do not value their manager or team leader's expertise or advice. Charismatic leadership. Charismatic leadership style can resemble transformational leadership because these leaders inspire enthusiasm in their teams and are energetic in motivating others to move forward. This ability to create excitement and commitment is an enormous benefit. The difference between charismatic leaders and transformational leaders lies in their intention. Transformational leaders want to transform their teams and organisations, whereas charismatic leaders are often focused on themselves and may not want to change a thing. The downside to charismatic leaders is that they believe more in themselves than in their teams. This can create the risk that a project or even an entire organisation might collapse if the leader leaves. A charismatic leader might believe that she or he can do no wrong, even when others are warning her or him about the path that they're on. And this feeling of invincibility can ruin a team or an organisation. Also, in the eyes of the team, success is directly connected to the presence of the charismatic leader. As such, charismatic leadership carries great responsibility and it needs a long-term commitment from the leader. Servant leadership. This term was created by Robert Greenleaf in the 1970s, and it describes a leader often not formally recognised as such. A servant leader is someone, regardless of level, who leads simply by meeting the needs of the team, and sometimes describes a person without formal recognition as a leader. Greenleaf's term closely resembles the theory of leadership put forward by Bennis, who was referred to earlier, and reiterates the advice given in the video with regard to knowing your team. Servant leaders lead by example. They have high integrity and steer with generosity. Their approach can create a positive corporate culture, and it can lead to high morale among team members. In many ways, servant leadership is a form of democratic leadership because the whole team tends to be involved in decision making. Supporters of the servant leadership model suggest that it is a good way to move ahead in a world where values are increasingly important, and where servant leaders can achieve power because of their values, their ideals, and their ethics. However, servant leaders often lead from behind. They prefer to stay out of the limelight and let their team accept recognition for their hard work. Other people believe that in competitive leadership situations, people who practice servant leadership can find themselves being left behind by leaders using other styles. This leadership style also takes time to apply correctly, so it is ill-suited in situations where quick decisions have to be made. Although servant leadership can be used in many situations, it's often most practical in politics or in positions where leaders are elected to serve a team, a committee, an organisation, or a community. The Blake-Moten Managerial Grid was published in 1964, and it highlights the most appropriate style to be used based on a leader's high concern for people and their equally high concern for the production of tasks. It argues that a leader should aim for both rather than try to offset one against the other. With the people-oriented style, it focuses on organising, supporting and developing team members. This participatory style is not unlike democratic leadership described earlier, as it encouraged good teamwork and creative collaboration. People-orientated leaders treat everyone on the team equally. They're friendly and approachable, and pay attention to the welfare of everyone in the group. They make themselves available whenever team members need help or advice. The benefit of the leadership style is that people-oriented leaders create teams that everyone wants to be a part of. Team members are often more productive and willing to take risks because they know that the leader will support it if they need it. The downside is that some leaders can take this approach too far. They may put the development of their team above tasks or projects' directives. Task-oriented leadership, on the other hand, is where the leaders focus only on getting the job done, and it can be autocratic. They actively define the work and the roles required. They put structures in place and plan, organise and monitor work. These leaders also perform other key tasks, such as creating and maintaining standards for performance. The benefit of task-oriented leadership is that it ensures that deadlines are met, and it's especially useful for team members who do not manage their time very well. However, because task-oriented leaders do not tend to think much about their team's well-being, this approach can suffer many of the flaws of autocratic leadership, including causing motivation and retention problems. Clearly, leadership is not a one-size-fits-all phenomenon. Often, leaders must adapt their approach to fit the situation. This is why it's useful to develop a thorough understanding of other leadership frameworks and styles. After all, the more approaches the leader is familiar with, the more flexible they can be. Let's look a little more now at the actual leadership styles that are on offer. Daniel Goleman, Richard Boyatzis, and Annie McKee detailed the 6 emotional leadership styles theory in their book, Primal Leadership. The theory highlights the strengths and weaknesses of 6 common styles: visionary, coaching, affiliative, democratic, pace-setting, and commanding. It also shows how each style can affect the emotions of team members. Goleman and his co-authors say that no one style should be used all of the time. Instead, the 6 styles should be used interchangeably, depending on the specific needs of the team and the situation, a factor that has been expounded several times during this presentation. A key point of Goleman's argument is that good leaders must be emotionally intelligent or sufficiently sensitive and interpersonally aware to know which styles to adopt for different situations. The authors identify 4 styles which encourage team harmony and inclusion, while the other 2 styles potentially create dissonance and discord. The 4 styles encouraging team harmony are called visionary, coaching, affiliative, and democratic, and the other 2 styles, pace-setting and commanding, are more directional and focus more on the setting down of expectations. Let's look a little more closely then at the visionary, coaching, affiliative, and democratic leadership styles. Visionary leaders move people towards shared dreams. They create a sense of direction by telling their teams where they're all going, but not how they're going to get there. They leave it up to team members to find their way to the common goal. They positively encourage change. Empathy is the most important aspect of this style of leadership. It's most effective when the organisation needs a new vision or a dramatic new direction, such as during a corporate turnaround. However, it is less likely to be effective when leaders are working with a team more experienced than they are. Here, democratic leadership is more likely to be effective. This leadership style can also be overbearing if it's used too often. In order to develop it, leaders should focus on increasing their expertise, vision, self-confidence, and empathy. They should get excited about change and let their teams see their enthusiasm. And they will need to convince others of their vision, so they should concentrate on improving their presentation skills. The coaching leadership style connects people's personal goals with the organisation's goals. A leader using this style is also empathetic and encouraging, and focuses on developing others for future success. This style centres on having in-depth conversations with employees that may have little to do with current work, instead focusing on long-term life goals and how these connect with the organisation's mission. This style has a positive impact on a team because it's motivating, since it establishes rapport and trust. And it should be used whenever a team member who needs help building long-term skills, or if it's felt that he or she is adrift in an organisation and could benefit from a coaching or mentoring relationship. However, coaching can fail when it's used too often, or it's used with an employee who's not making an effort, or who needs a lot of direction and feedback. Here, pace-setting or coercive leadership may be more appropriate. Leaders should learn how to engage in informal coaching and mentoring, and more importantly, get to know the people on their team. With this knowledge, they will better be able to see when the team need guidance or advice. The affiliative leadership style promotes harmony within the team. This style builds relationships and connects people together. It encourages inclusion and resolves conflict. To use this style, leaders must value the emotions of others and put a high value on their emotional needs. Use this style whenever there is team tension or conflict, when the trust has been broken, or if the team needs to be motivated through a stressful time. Leaders who use the affiliative style are highly focused on emotion, so must learn how to resolve conflict and how to be optimistic in the face of challenges. The democratic leadership style focuses on collaboration. Leaders using this leadership style actively seek input from their teams, and they rely more on listening than directing. This style is best used when there's a need to get a team on board with an idea or build consensus. It's also effective when a team's input is crucial. This style should not be used with people who are inexperienced, who lack competence, or are not well informed about a situation. It's best to ask for input from team members who are motivated, knowledgeable, and capable. To develop a democratic leadership style, leaders should involve their teams in problem solving and decision making and teach them the skills that they need to do this. And they should also learn active listening and facilitation skills. The pace settings leader. In this style, it focuses on performance and meeting goals. Leaders using this style expect excellence from their teams, and often the leader will jump in him or herself to make sure that goals are met. The pace-setting style does not mollycoddle poor performance. Everyone is held to a high standard. And while this can be a successful style, it can have a negative effect on the team, leading to burnout, exhaustion, and high staff turnover. The pace-setting leadership style is best used when there is a need to get high-quality results from a motivated team very quickly. The pace-setting style focuses on high performance, so leaders should learn how to improve the quality of their team's work using techniques like Six Sigma and Kaizen. They should train their people properly and engage in high-performance coaching to help the team become as effective as possible. Leaders may also want to work on their motivation skills so that they can get the best from people. Coercive leaders use an autocratic approach to leadership. This style often depends on orders, the often unspoken threat of punishment, and tight control. People in modern democratic countries are used to having a level of control over their lives and their work, and this approach deprives them of this. What is more, because this leadership style is so often misused, it can have a profoundly negative effect on a team. The coercive leadership style is best used in crisis situations, or to jumpstart fast-paced change and to deal with problem employees. Employ caution when setting out to develop and adopt a coercive leadership style, as it's very easily mismanaged. To work effectively in high-pressure situations, leaders should learn how to manage crises, think on their feet, and make good decisions under pressure. Let's see now what the ILM think a good leader does.
My manager has just told me that now I'm a leader, I should inspire my team and to look around the organisation for examples of good leaders and use them as role models. But how do I know who the good ones are?
That certainly is good advice. You can learn a lot about leadership from people who do it well. We hear so much about leadership in the news, how problems in organisations have been caused by an absence of leadership or poor leadership, so identifying who the good leaders are is obviously important. But it is also important to understand why good leadership matters. Good leadership improves organisational performance. Organisations that take leadership seriously achieve better results because good leaders know what is expected of them. They know how to keep activities on track, helping to make sure the organisation achieves what it's supposed to achieve. Good leaders know how to manage the performance of the people they are leading. They get the best out of them. They inspire them. Good leaders create an environment where people care about their work. They are engaged. Engaged employees do a better job than those that don't. They are more likely to satisfy customers. They take fewer days off sick. They are less likely to leave for another job. They are loyal to the organisation. Good leadership ensures these things happen. So now we know why leadership is important, we need to know what good leaders actually do. Good leaders involve people in decision making. They create a culture where doing things well is the norm. They don't ignore difficult situations or hope they will go away. They find ways of resolving differences and misunderstandings by talking about them. They hold productive meetings where all the members of the team feel listened to. They work with team members to set clear, achievable targets. They appreciate and recognise good performance. They give help, encouragement and advice when they are needed. They help their team members learn from their mistakes. They coach them to do better and give them the responsibility to show what they are capable of. Good leaders can be trusted to do the best for their team. So, your manager is right. Good leaders are important role models. They show people what good leadership is by actually doing it themselves.
The main thrust of the video is actually the importance of understanding why good leadership matters. We're told that good leadership improves organisational performance and that good leaders know what is expected of them in order to achieve organisational goals. They know how to manage the performance of the people they lead and how to get the best out of them. Good leaders inspire those they lead. They involve people in decision making, and they create an environment where people care about their work, where they are engaged. And research has shown that people who are engaged do a better job than those who are not. They're more likely to be assiduous about customer satisfaction. They take fewer days off sick. They're loyal to the organisation and they're less likely to leave for another job. Good leaders make these happen because they create a culture where doing things well is the norm. They don't ignore difficult situations and hope they'll go away. Instead, they find ways of resolving difficulties and misunderstandings, such as holding productive meetings where all the members are listened to. This resonates with Sirota's three-factor theory of human motivation in the workplace. He suggested that the best way to motivate team members is to give them what they want, because the majority of people start a job full of enthusiasm and really want to enjoy their work. The job of the leader is to ensure that this higher level of motivation is maintained by making sure that individual goals match organisational goals, and that the organisation takes good care of its employees. Poor conditions and ineffective or inconsistent leadership quickly reduces motivation. Let's have a look now at what the ILAM say about delegating responsibility. One of the main things that a good leader has to do.
My manager has told me that I need to delegate more. However, it's much easier and faster if I do things myself. It takes so long to brief people that it's no help to me at all to delegate. But I do understand that managers should delegate.
Management means getting things done through your team members. This means that delegation is an incredibly useful skill for a manager. It is the process of entrusting responsibility and authority to others. It can help you to make best use of your human resources and so improve team performance. It can leave you free to make better use of your time by doing less and managing more, so you become available to help and guide your other people. It also gives a way of developing and of checking a team member's suitability for promotion. It is a form of participation, giving team members greater scope for action and opportunities to develop their potential, and hence improve motivation and morale. And it creates a climate in which people can become more involved in planning and decision making. It is a way of empowering your team. To get the full benefits of delegation without you losing control, you need to have a planned and systematic approach. Ask yourself these 4 questions. What tasks could be performed better by other team members? What opportunities are there for team members to learn and develop by carrying out delegated tasks and responsibilities? How should the increased responsibilities be put into action, and to whom should they be given? What form of monitoring and control would be appropriate. The more experienced and reliable the other person is, then the more freedom you can give them. The more critical the task, then the more cautious you need to be about extending a lot of freedom. Always check with the other person that they are comfortable with your chosen level of delegated responsibility. When people properly understand what is being asked of them, they can often surprise us. Delegation is a matter of judgment, confidence, and trust. For it to be effective, team members should know exactly what's expected of them, what has to be achieved, the boundaries within which they have the freedom of action, that is, their level of authority, and how far they can make decisions on their own. People must be properly informed, given guidance and support with any necessary training, and be advised where they could go for further help. You must agree time limits and set up a way to monitor progress and give feedback. Perhaps a short but regular meeting, for example. Agree on performance standards for the delegated tasks and how these will be measured. Then your team member should be left alone to get on with the job. The true nature of successful delegation means that your team member is given freedom to act within boundaries that have been agreed and understood. But don't forget to show your appreciation when they respond well, and don't take the credit for their achievements either.
So, this presentation has the issue of delegation as its focus and aims to stress the importance placed on this aspect in terms of managerial and leadership skills. Delegation is the process of entrusting others with the responsibility and authority. It can help make best use of the human resources at a manager's disposal and thus improve team performance. Delegation helps free up a manager's time by doing less and managing more. It gives a manager time to respond to issues and to be available for coaching and advice and checking a team member's suitability for promotion or advancement. Delegation is a participative style of leadership and gives team members greater scope for action and opportunity to develop their potential. This, in turn, helps to improve motivation and morale. It creates a climate in which people can be more involved in planning and decision making, and so empowers the team. In order to gain the full benefits of delegation without a loss of control, this, you remember, is a common feature of the overused laissez-faire style of leadership. It's important to have a planned and systematic approach. When thinking about delegating, leaders have to decide what tasks can be performed better by other team members rather than themselves. They need to consider what opportunities there are for team members to learn and develop by carrying out delegated tasks and responsibilities. Leaders need to give careful thought as to how the responsibility is actioned and by whom, and they need to be very clear about what form of monitoring and control will be appropriate and how and when the delegated tasks will be checked. It's evident that the more experienced a member is, the more freedom they can be given in terms of carrying out the delegated task or tasks. However, the more critical the task, the more cautious a leader needs to be about extending a lot of freedom. As with other aspects of leadership and management, it's important to find out if the chosen team member is comfortable with the level of responsibility for a delegated task or tasks. Delegation is in itself a matter of judgment, confidence and trust, and for it to be effective, the team member must be clear about what's expected of them and what is to be achieved. The team member needs to know the extent of their freedom to act within boundaries, that is, to what level their authority extends and how far they can make decisions on their own. As we've heard numerous times in this series of webinars, communication is key. People must be properly informed and given any necessary support, training and guidance, and be advised of where they can go for any further help. There must be an agreement about time limits and a process set up to monitor progress and give feedback. Agreement should also be reached about the standard of performance for the delegated tasks and how these will be measured. Following this process, the team member should just be left alone to get on with the job. We are reminded that true delegation means to give the freedom to act within boundaries that have been agreed and understood. As always, a good leader shows appreciation for a job done well and avoids taking all the credit for the team member's achievements. From the review of this leadership theory, it would appear that the thinking about leadership has moved beyond simple definitions of behaviours to also consider some of the cognitive, affective, and interpersonal qualities of leadership. In addition to the soft skills, a leader is also expected to display excellent information processing, to be an expert at project management, have exceptional customer service and delivery skills, as well as proven business and political acumen. They build partnerships, they walk the talk, they show incredible drive and enthusiasm, and get things done. Furthermore, the leader demonstrates innovation, creativity, and thinks outside the box. They identify opportunities, they like to be challenged, and they're prepared to take risks. Of interest too is the emphasis on the importance of values, such as honesty, integrity, empathy, trust, ethics, and valuing diversity. These qualities are not dissimilar to those espoused by Venice, whom we heard about at the very beginning of this webinar. The leader is expected to show a true concern for people that is drawn from a deep level of self-awareness and personal reflection. Leaders vary in their style and their use of leadership style. No one style works in every situation. The challenge for the leader is to select the right approach for the individual or individuals being led and the situation they are in. This, as you are now very aware, has been a recurring theme throughout this webinar. Studies have shown that trust and confidence in top leadership is the single most reliable predictor of employee satisfaction in an organisation. Effective communication by leadership is the key to winning organisational trust and confidence, and it involves helping employees understand the company's overall business strategy, helping employees understand how they contribute to achieving business objectives, and sharing information with employees on both how the company is doing and how an employee's own division or department is doing relative to strategic business objectives. Wendy Brooks, director at leadership training provider Helmsley Fraser, shares her ideas on the subject of leadership. She tells us it's important to be an active learner and foster learning in others. It's worth bearing in mind that core leadership principles and practices can be learned. In other words, leaders would be advised to commit not only to their own development, but to support similar development in others, while also acting as role models for learning throughout the organisation. Former General Electric Chief Executive Jack Welch reportedly spent 40% of his time developing the next generation of leaders, and he regarded it as his most interesting task. Share a clear and compelling vision. The key to effective leadership is setting a strategic direction that is clear and compelling, but ensure that this strategy is practical at every level so that people understand what they do fits into the bigger picture. Also ensure that the organisation has the capability and capacity to achieve the goals set out, and ensure that all of its systems and processes support the way that people need to work. But remember, it's also important to measure whatever success means and be sure to balance the requirements of financial backers and shareholders with the need to invest in people and infrastructure, as well as innovation. If any of these core activities are missed out, the organisation will perform at a suboptimal level. Prioritise activity based on the business context. Leaders must prioritise their actions to suit the context of the organisation and the environment in which they operate. Different leadership skills will need to come to the fore at different times, which means that it is essential to understand the context of the situation and to be able to adapt one's leadership style accordingly. Lead with integrity, honesty and consistency, as these are the bedrock of good leadership, because people follow leaders that they trust. Conversely, even the most compelling vision, communicated with clarity and conviction, will fall on deaf ears if a leader lacks credibility and integrity. Develop leadership capacity at all levels of the organisation. This principle can be contentious, as it challenges a number of assumptions about authority and the guardianship of knowledge and expertise. However, the distinction between leadership and management has become less important than it used to be. Today's organisations require leaders at every level that can execute strategy and ensure that employees feel motivated enough to contribute to the fore. By way of contrast, if leadership is considered to be the purview of the few, the organisation's ability to respond quickly and effectively will be limited. I leave you with some ideas about the principles of leadership. Know yourself and seek self-improvement. In order to know yourself, you have to continually strengthen your attributes by reading and self-study. Be technically proficient. As a leader, you must know your job and have a solid familiarity with your employees' jobs. Seek responsibility and take responsibility for your actions. Search for ways to guide your organisation to new heights, and if things go wrong, do not blame others. Make sound and timely decisions. Use good problem-solving, decision-making and planning tools. Set the example. Be a good role model for your employees. They will believe what they see, not what they hear. Know your people and look out for their well-being. Know human nature and the importance of sincerely caring for your team. Keep your people informed. Know how to communicate with your team, senior management, and other key people within the organisation. Develop a sense of accountability, ownership, and responsibility in your team. These traits will help them carry out their professional responsibilities effectively. Ensure that tasks are understood, supervised, and accomplished. As we've heard, communication is the key to this responsibility. And train your people as a team. By developing team spirit, you'll be able to employ your organisation, department, or section to its fullest capabilities. And finally, some advice for a leader or an aspiring leader. 6 most important words. I admit I made a mistake. The 5 most important words. You did a good job. The 4 most important words. What's your opinion? The 3 most important words. If you please. The 2 most important words. Thank you. The 1 most important word. We. And the least important word. I.